Hello everyone, today I'm going to teach you how to do a threshold panel in stata. First of all, the threshold panel was developed by Bruce E. Hansen in it is the paper Threshold Effects in Non-Dynamic Panels, Estimation and Testing Difference. And here we have the paper where the threshold command in stata was developed, where it's a kind of manual of threshold panel in stata fits the effect threshold model using stata of Quang want. Okay, first of all, some basic things of when to use a threshold panel. Let's imagine that X is the GDP per capita of some nation or some panel, and Y is the pollution of that countries or regions. Okay, we suspect that there's a limit at a threshold where at this level the trend changes. For example, before $2,000 GDP per capita, the pollution is increasing, and after that point, the pollution is decreasing, and after that point, the pollution is increasing again. So, in threshold panel, we want to know where is that limit, and and with some tests we prove it if this limit is real or not. Okay, I import this dataset is the GDP per capita of some states of Mexico and the pollution of that state. In this case, they're from 2008 to 2022 for 32 states. Okay, okay. Let's explain basic things of the equation of a threshold. Here's the paper of rateability impact of foreign direct investment on carbon emission does per GDP per capita matter, and we have two kind of threshold. Okay, first of all, for example, the pollution is explained by FDI, if basically by FDI, and here's the threshold. In this case, the question says before this limit, the GDP is affecting the foreign direct investment and have a specific coefficient. Between the two values, the GDP is affecting this one kind of threshold. The other type of here is basically the question that Hansen developed. Before this variable is affecting this, but for example, other other papers, words with this before this value, the GDP is affecting the GDP. In this case, the variable is affecting the same variable. So, in this case, the FDI affecting the FDI. So, I hear my question, um, and this is the command that we need to use. HTHREG, the dependent variable and the explained variables, in this case GDP of secondary sector is equal to industry, population density, spend on regulation, education, and energy consumptions. It explains the emission of greenhouse gases. E-rate is the variable that have the threshold. Is this in E-rates we put the variable that we want to explain with threshold. In QITs is the variable that is affecting this threshold. Could be education. For example, the GDP is affected by education, bad fiscal spending, bad interest rate, or by the same GDP. Threshold number is the number of thresholds that have our model. In this case, T is two threshold. One threshold is only one line. For example, in this paper, we have two thresholds here and here. This by default. BS means the number of iterations that the model do. Okay, let's run this model. In this case, let's prove the GDP has a threshold and education is the variable that is affecting the GDP. Okay, the model is calculating. T is the threshold. The threshold. In this case, the before this variable, before this number, the threshold is this. The beta is this. After this number, the trend change and the new coefficient is this. In this case, this is the t value or p value of if it's real. In this case, we have the GDP, one threshold, and the values are 0. Okay, is 0.28 in the second half 0.27. Okay, according to the threshold test, the threshold exists. This is the first step. The threshold is real. In this case, before this value of educations take values from 1.86 to 2.45. Before this value, the coefficient is this, and the pollution is increasing at this rate. After this value, the pollution is increasing, but less than before. So in long run, it's increasing but slowly. A kind of and here we have all of Swift coefficient is interpreted like linear regressions, and this is interpreted here before this point. The value is stiff. After this point, the value is here. T is in the case of one threshold. Let's sample that we want to take T thresholds. We need to take number of threshold 3. We need to repeat this 3 times because it's calculating by each threshold. Sorry, 300. Okay, and now the stata is calculating the threshold. With Bostral for single threshold, Bostat. Okay, and here we have the threshold. Here's the first threshold, the second threshold. The values are here, and here. 3 threshold. But the threshold test indicates that only one threshold is real. If we put this in our model, it's wrong. Why? because according to the p-value of double threshold, if we put another threshold here, that it's wrong. Why? Because this threshold is not real according to the p-value of this test. So but one threshold it's true. Okay, so we back to to this model, and T is the correct model. T is the basic things of how a threshold model works.